Good morning, ARMR Insiders, and welcome to the virtual hedge fund we call ARMR Investing. We're going to go over the stock market right now, what's happening with the risk monitor. We're going to get to this picture, which is Canopy growth and what happened to the cannabis stocks yesterday. We'll be on the cannabis couch. But first things first, let's remember what we're doing here. We're managing a virtual hedge fund. You're the portfolio manager on the desk. We're in the morning meeting. So let's talk about how we're going to execute strategy. And then you go out there onto the trading floor when the bell rings and you execute your strategy. Make sure you're the smart money at the end of the day. Okay. So let's talk about stock market first, and then we'll get to the cannabis couch, which is the fun part. So join me on the cannabis couch and let's talk about how to invest in cannabis stocks. And I submit to you, this is how you should invest, and I should invest in every asset. In every asset. This is the correct entry point in every investment we make. And what we need to understand is if we're making any other entries, we can do it. You got to have tight stops and you have to get out quick. I personally would like to never do anything other than this. Let's look at our execution on MSOS. We bought MSOS, and I was buying calls and I was telling you about it 2 days ago. I'm expecting a call from the SEC any minute because we loaded up the day, not yesterday, but the day before. We loaded up. The next day, the DEA comes out and announces they're going to agree to recommend rescheduling cannabis from S1 to S3. And I'm going to tell you what that means. What does it mean short term? What does it mean long term? How do I want to invest? We're going to go over all of that in a minute. But I really think this is important. Why did we load up on cannabis the day before the news comes out? I didn't have any information. I don't have any clue what the DEA is going to do. But I said to you 2 days ago, now's the time to buy MSOS and whatever cannabis names you want. Certainly when it comes to call options, you had to own them already. And we did it because we like to location trade. We like to use ARMR algos to give us entry points. We want to get on the right side of probabilities when reward is worth risk. You hear me talk about that all the time. This is a case study in that. So here's MSOS. These are our entry points. The green box here, profit. The green box here, profit. The green box here, huge profit. Why did we do that? We look at price structure. I shared with you 2 days ago. I don't know why cannabis outperforming the market and setting up a nice location trade again. I don't have the information. But what I do know is that the accumulation and the money flows along with the ARMR algo buy trigger were telling us to get long. And I said to you, look, that information is going to be in the hands of Congress. You know, they get inside information all the time. They trade on it all the time. The SEC never calls them. That's just the way the game's played. So the only way for us to function in that mid joint is to use price chart analysis, money flow analysis, ARMR algo buy trigger analysis, and buy locations. What does that mean? It means buying in the bottom right-hand part of the chart, simply put, as opposed to the top right-hand part of the chart. What I mean by that is you want to buy weakness in the midst of strength. You hear me say that over and over again. Well, here's an example of it. Strength is the uptrend in MSOS. Weakness is the sell-off down to the trend. And I know this sounds simple, but when you're down here in the trend, nobody wants to buy it. And when it pops up, everyone wants to get involved. And I never understand that. I mean, I guess it's just a human emotion. We're herd animals and we want to do what the herd's doing. But we have to act like lone wolves or a wolf pack. If you want to be a wolf pack, let's do that. We have to buy weakness in the midst of strength. We can use algos to find the entry point. We look for the right location and you put money to work and let other people mark up your portfolio. And that's what we did yesterday. News hit the tape. Everyone else marks up our portfolio. We're not scrambling. Halted news pending. MSOS jumps 20%. Bang. We just crushed it because we were willing to take the risk when the reward was worth it closest to the stop. That is a case study in what you hear me say all the time on the desk. And so when we're making any investments together going forward, ask me, ask yourself, are we buying right? Are we buying weakness in the midst of strength? Or are we chasing momentum? Hey, every now and then we're all going to chase momentum, but at least understand what you're doing. You're running with the herd and they might all jump off the cliff. So you have to execute different. But I, for one, would like to work harder and only put capital to work in entry points like that. Okay. So let's talk about the DEA reschedule news we all knew was coming. What is the short-term implication, longer-term implication as I see it, and how do I want to invest right now? Short-term implication. The first thing that comes to mind is a cash windfall for U.S. cannabis companies. These are all assumptions, by the way. We don't know this until it plays out, but these are the assumptions. There's going to be, at tax time, if you're not involved in an illegal activity, then our, Section 280E goes away, and all the U.S. cannabis companies will be able to expense things just like any other business, and cash flow will go up dramatically. So we all know that's the first thing that happens. So right now, it makes all of the U.S. cannabis companies more stable financial companies because they have more cash flow. I would assume right away it will allow these companies, when they go to raise more capital, they'll do it at better rates that are more advantageous to their business. Whenever they issue debt, whenever they issue equity, it's always at a disadvantage compared to every other business out there because they were doing something, quote, illegal. That goes away. So they should be able to tap debt markets, much more attractive interest rates. These are some things that should happen right away. That brings me to when I say right away, not today, but in the short term, who knows, 3 to 6 months, these things should start happening. One very big thing that may happen is that there'll be some brokerage firms, some banks, some institutions that are willing to do business with cannabis companies that were not willing to do it before. As an example, perhaps some of these companies can uplist from the Canadian Stock Exchange to U.S. exchange. This will be a cash windfall for these companies because they won't just go and uplist. In all likelihood, they'll do secondary offerings to raise cash. Normally, that puts stocks down. In this case, I think it would put stocks up. They'll be tapping a flow of capital at rates they've never been able to tap before, bringing in institutional investors. So they'll probably uplist with a secondary. You'll get brokerage firms coming out with recommendations, bringing in institutions. These are the things that should happen in the short term, assuming, and this is a big assumption in the cannabis world, that the DEA recommendation pushes through legislation that makes these changes happen. That's what should happen in the short term. And if that happens, these stocks go up a lot. Now, some drawbacks. Let's keep this fair and balanced. Going from S1 to S3 does not help states that are recreational use. So if you're a company doing business in a state that's recreational use and it's S3, sorry, still illegal. S3 labels weed right next to something like codeine. You don't have recreational use of codeine. Okay. So there's still some disparities. There's still a lot of things to iron out. But in the short term, taxed advantaged, they're no longer disadvantaged. Possible uplistings, possible influx of capital into a capital starved business. That should be bullish for these companies. Longer term, if it is a Schedule S3 thing, and we don't know because I read last night that there's some senators out there, congressmen and women putting together a bill to deschedule completely. So this may be another short-term benefit before I get to long-term. This may be another short-term benefit. What the DEA just said will give political cover all of the other initiatives, safe banking, descheduling, all these types of things. So it might be a recommendation to reschedule by the DEA, and that might open the floodgates to deschedule. That's the bullish story. And so we should get favorable news announcements. We'll have to see how the stocks react to them because it could be a whole bunch of nothing until November 4th. You know what I'm saying? So will they do anything before the election or do they make you vote for them to do it after the election? I don't know. Who knows? Politicians, So there should be a series of positive news stories, things about safe banking, things about descheduling, all that kind of stuff. And may they get together and do something. Those are all short-term things that should support stock prices. Should. We still have to raise our stops. And if it hits our stops, we're out because something else is happening. All right. But here's the longer term thing. If this becomes a Schedule S3 thing, then I think that means pharmaceutical money comes in a major way. And it might come in anyway. This is something not talked about a lot. But by going S3, it allows for the drug discovery. I suspect in the next 3 to 6, whatever months, however long it takes to spool up and I've read about a number of studies ready to go, just waiting for this DEA announcement. There are going to be companies, pharmaceutical companies, biotech companies, I suspect, working with U.S. cannabis grow facilities to create strange strains for a specific product. And if pharmaceutical money comes into this space, should be very big for these stocks. I don't know if they'll, I don't know if, we don't know what it'll look like. I think it's a stretch to think a pharmaceutical company will take over a U.S. cannabis company, but I can see them cutting a deal for weed. Hey, you guys have the grow capabilities, and we're putting together a study. Could you supply so we can do this for, to prove that it affects, inflammation or whatever. And of course, those studies take years, but it's the business relationship between pharmaceutical and cannabis that could be huge for the group. That's longer term. Just something to think about. So how do I invest in this space? We already put capital to work before the move, so we didn't have to scramble. Then, if you were on the desk with me yesterday at 1:00, you would have made a lot of money, because the first thing we did when they halted MSOS is we bought shares of Canopy Growth. We paid under $9 for Canopy Growth at around 104. Halted MSOS. I said to you guys, here it comes. When the news hit the tape, there was still time to buy Canopy Growth. Bang, we hit it under $9, and it went out at almost $15. That was a huge move. Organigram. I bought a little Organigram. Now, this is my own favorite idea. We bought it under $2. This is a longer term story in Organigram. They just did an equity offering. They got cash. They have the IP on grow pods. It's AI for grow pods. You could set up a grow facility inside of a shipping container and have the computer platform run the entire growth. Is that the type of company a pharmaceutical works with? Could be. Under $2, I'll take that stock. So how do I handle it from here? You can see on these two charts, I put Fibonacci retracement lines on. Now, you guys can do whatever you want. They were up huge yesterday, and I said to you on the desk at the close, go ahead and sell them if you want. You're up like 70% on a trade in a few hours. I get it. Go sell it. Go book a profit. You don't want to wait for me and how I do things. You have to be the smart money and execute your strategy. I could own a lot more cannabis if this story gets legs. I have a good position, and I consider it my core position now. If this story gets legs, I could own a lot more. If the risk monitor goes red and the market's cratering, these stocks aren't going to go anywhere right now. They're going to back and fill until the next piece of news comes out. I expect positive news cycle now. I think the biggest takeaway of the DEA is that it is cover. It's political cover for a whole bunch of other initiatives. I think people are underestimating what just happened because they've been destroyed in cannabis for so long, and it's a cottage industry, and they can't see it. We made a lot of money together in cannabis 2020. We avoided the collapse in cannabis. So we come at this with a fresh, open mind, and we loaded up the day before the DEA news. So we got a fresh, open mind. I'm just going to execute what I see. I got Fibonacci extensions, retracements. I'm going to see where we find support at what retracement, and I'm probably increasing my position size. And of course, I'll have a stop in there. I'm going to give away a certain amount of the gains. I'm willing to do it, and I'll book a profit if I have to, if the whole thing unravels. So I'm not going to lose money. I'm going to make money. But this first spike up should be the beginning of a multi-month move if we can get the movement we expect. And I would just say that past is prologue. And I think most people are looking behind them at how tough it's been in cannabis. And I think that may be changing. That's my thought for you on the cannabis couch. Guys, ARMR Report subscribers, you're on your own now. Feel free to throw anything in the comment section you want. I'm happy to answer it if I can during the day. ARMR Insiders, 9:30. We'll get started in about 9 minutes. Market is coming off of the lows. It looked like it was a lot lower at the open. It's bouncing off of the lows. No trading all day. There's not really much to do. Fed news comes out. Then we watch the live stream of Chairman Powell's Q&A, and we'll decide what we do. Either the risk monitor is going red and we're raising cash, or the market's starting to skyrocket again, and we're building up our index position into the end of the week, in which case, under that positive scenario, we'll start buying individual names. So this is a good morning to work on your watch list and get yourself ready. It's very simple. We break down, we go to cash, nothing to do. But we hold here and go higher. That'll be very compelling for the stock market. It'll be a nasty test of the stop that holds, and it'll capture a lot of people on the wrong foot, I think. So anyway, I'll work with you guys all day. We'll work on our watch list. And anybody else who finds it impossible to make these changes, you got a day job, you can't do it. I'm happy to work with you on another way. Just pick up the phone, give me a call. I'm happy to chat and see if that relationship between both of us works. All right, everybody, remember at the end of the day, and everything you hear from me and everything you hear from anybody else about what's going on, you got to sit in a quiet place, figure out your strategy, and be the smart money. Have a good day.